Hey, what's going on, guys? So I got a few questions lately about how to stop being late to things, and I thought this would be a good topic to cover because some of us do have problems getting ourselves to things on time. Even if we're not jerks who don't respect the time of others, we simply have other problems, little brain bugs that cause us to be habitually late. So in today's video, I've got 5 specific tips that can hopefully help you become the most punctual person in your friend group. And the first couple are going to tackle what I think is the main problem that makes people so late, which is that we as humans are very bad at making accurate time estimates. And we are susceptible to something called the planning fallacy, which describes how basically we are over optimistic in our estimations. And the first thing you can start doing to fight against this planning fallacy is to start envisioning the entire sequence of steps it's going to take to get you from whatever you're doing right now to your next scheduled event. And the reason that you should do this is because it puts you on the right side of what's called the segmentation effect. And this effect basically describes how people make shorter time estimations for an entire task than their time estimations for the sum total of all the subtasks were they to break that task down. And the reason this happens is because we tend to fixate on the most important part, or the part that's going to take the longest. A perfect example is transit time. If I need to get somewhere, my brain tends to naturally fixate on how long it's going to take to get there. So I might think, oh, I need to get to a coffee shop in the next town over. It's going to take 25 minutes to drive there. And if I were to actually write down all the steps involved in getting up from my desk and getting myself into the building, which I actually did, I can find out that this is actually a 16-step process and there's about 8 minutes of extra steps involved. So instead of budgeting 25 minutes to get there, I should budget 34. And in reality, this is actually not enough time because, like I said, the planning fallacy has a pretty tight grip on our brains and we are over optimistic in our time estimations. And this is a natural brain bug. In fact, researchers at the University of Waterloo in Canada found this out by asking people to make 2 different types of time estimations for completing a task. They asked people for best guess scenarios, basically like the everyday run-of-the-mill average case, and they also asked people for hopeful, ideal, best case scenario guesses. And the results were virtually identical for both cases, which indicates that we only see the ideal scenario when we try to plan how long it's going to take to do something. We don't think about the grandma that's going to be driving 5 miles an hour in front of us. We don't think about the ninjas that are going to attack us on our way to school. These things happen, right? We don't plan for the things that will go wrong. But there's a natural distribution of outcomes for any event, both good and bad. And our brains just tend to fixate on that perfect, ideal, tiny little end of the bell curve where everything goes right. And very rarely is that actually going to be what happens. Now, with a lot of practice and experience, I've found that it is possible to get over this tendency to be over-optimistic, but an interim solution is to use what's called a fudge ratio. And this is a concept that was created by the writer and blogger Steve Pavlina, and it's basically the difference between your time estimate for something and the actual time it takes. So, for example, if you thought it would take 30 minutes to go to the store and it actually takes you 45, then your fudge ratio is 1.5. And what he recommends you do is to keep this number in mind and apply it as like a second step in your brain, like a revision step to all your future time estimates for similar tasks. Now, with the third tip I've got for you guys, we're going to attack the problem from a different angle. Tips 1 and 2 were about estimating more accurately and trying to envision all the steps. And tip number 3 is to simply remove steps by doing stuff in advance. If you pack your bag the night before when you go to bed, or you lay out all your clothes in advance, or maybe you like bulk cook your meals so you can just wake up and microwave them, then you've got less to do in the morning or whenever you need to start doing stuff. And the less steps that you have to go through in any process, the easier it's going to be to estimate how long it'll take. But more importantly, the fewer instances there are for things to go wrong, right? A simpler process has fewer points of failure than a complicated one. All right, so now that we've moved through tips for making your time estimates more accurate and for making your processes simpler, my penultimate tip, or 4th tip for you guys, is to schedule an end time to the task that you're currently doing. And the reasons that we want to do this are, number 1, sometimes we just get caught up in our work and we don't realize we need to get going to our next thing. And number 2, sometimes we do know we need to get going to the next thing, but our brains are kind of like being rewarded for whatever we're doing right now. Maybe we're on Facebook, or maybe we're like really into the work we're doing, or we're playing a video game. And the old part of your brain, the limbic system that's kind of getting all the dopamine hits, is basically like a little kid petitioning its mom saying like, just one more minute, right? And your prefrontal cortex, the more control-y part of your brain, has to be the mom and say, no, it's bedtime, turn off the freaking video games, turn off the Yu-Gi-Oh, it's time to go to bed. And bed is probably class, but you know, what I found is that an external system is much better at being a mom for the old part of your brain than your PFC is. So use an alarm, maybe use a Pomodoro session that ends 5 minutes before your next task needs to begin, or maybe just have an alarm on your phone that says it's time to start winding down. That way your brain is going to be able to kind of boot itself out of whatever you're doing right now and start doing the next thing when it actually needs to do it. And finally, my last tip is for any of you guys that find yourselves forgetting events, either forgetting them entirely and completely missing them, or forgetting them until like 5 minutes before they're going to start, which results in a panic attack, right? Neither is a good situation, and luckily both can be completely rectified just by using a calendar efficiently. Like the productivity guru David Allen once said, your brain is for having ideas, not storing them. This is true even if you have some weird genius brain that can remember 99% of all the events that you have to go to, and I can tell you mine is not like that. I can probably remember maybe 75%, and usually those are only the fun ones, but my calendar is always going to remember 100% of everything that I put into it, unless evil hackers somehow get into it, and I've got pretty strong passwords. So get into the habit of putting events into your calendar the moment they come up on your schedule. Get them out of your brain and into a quick capture system, I like to call it, so it's basically in a steel trap that you trust. And I'd also recommend setting up reminder notifications for your events. Now, part of my morning routine is to wake up and immediately check my calendar so I know exactly what's going to happen that day, but for certain events, I want to make darn sure that I'm going to get to them on time, so I'll use Google Calendar's reminder feature to set maybe like an hour before a notification to come to my phone. All right, so those are the tips I've got for you in this video, and if you're able to implement them all into your life, you are likely to become the most punctual person in your group of friends, which will give you the honor and privilege of being annoyed at all the friends who are perpetually late now that you aren't. But hey, you could just send them this video, right? So hopefully you found this helpful. If you got additional tips, I would love to hear about them down in the comments. And you can also check out the blog post for this video, which has got some extra details and links to some cool scientific studies about why our brains are broken and over-optimistic. If you enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up to support this channel. And if you want to get new tips every single week on being a more effective student, you can click that big red subscribe button down there. You can also get a free copy of the book I wrote on earning better grades by clicking the picture of said book right over there. And if you missed last week's video, it was about how to wake up early. So if that's something you want to do and you missed it, check it out right there. Once again, if you want to check out that companion article, which has extra details and resource links, you can click the button right there. And if you'd like to connect with me, well, you're probably going to need a rooftop and a spotlight, because all I'm saying is, have you ever seen Batman and me in the same room at the same time? Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.